self-defense is I want to deliver as many...
Rolling.
Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics. In this installment of Ground Fighting Pistol, I know it's been a while since we've covered this topic, but we are going to talk about weapon retention specifically. Before we actually get into the physical aspects of that, let's talk a little bit about what we're talking about. Weapon retention is basically the ability and tools that you can use to protect your weapon in the event that someone tries to take it from you, be it a gun grab or a wrestling for the gun, or when the gun's already out and there's a fight develops over the weapon. Obviously, deterrence is the first step. If you open carry, please, by all means, do so in a retention holster. I see a lot of people open carry in no retention or friction lock holsters. Phobos is probably one of the most common ones I've seen. The holster has no retention. You should not be open carrying in a holster that has no retention. Even a thumb brake is better than nothing. Next thing is, for weapon retention, have a good belt. Today, I'm using an Aries gear. My fallback, or I should say my equally favorite belt, would be a Jones Tactical. Thirdly, and actually this to me is a little more important, if you carry a knife, do so with the intent to protect your weapon. You can use either a folder or a fixed blade. My personal favorite folder is the Emerson series with the wave feature, because they open themselves. Why is that important? If I'm using my other hand, as we're going to see in this video, to protect my weapon from a grab, I can deploy the knife with one hand. If you don't like folding knives, or if you're kind of a straight blade guy, I like the Koi knives, either the Forerunner or the Ridgeback. These knives are great. They conceal well. They're small enough to fit easily on the belt, be worn very easily, but they still have a significant enough blade to actually be used in a weapon retention situation. Now, when I talk about no retention holster, this is basically a good example. This is an off-the-grid Sidewinder. It's an amazing holster. This one was designed for outside the waistband carry. This is my personal favorite Kydex. All my Kydex is off the grid. But it has no active retention feature. There's no thumb brake. There's no internal lock. There's nothing like that. There's nothing that I actively have to disengage in order to draw the gun. From concealment, that's fine, because concealed means concealed. But if I'm open carrying in a holster such as this, all someone has to do is take my gun. Obviously, that's a significant issue. You're putting yourself at a disadvantage open carrying from a holster like this. You open carry, use a retention holster.
Rolling.
Okay, I'm here with Matt Powell, Prameks. He's going to be assisting me on this. So context. When might you have to find yourself in a situation where you need to retain your weapon? Now imagine, if you will, a physical altercation. However it develops is kind of irrelevant, but we all know you bring a gun to the fight, no matter if they bring one or not. So there's always going to be a lethal weapon present if you carry concealed or open carry or what have you. So if me and Matt get into a physical altercation, punching match, or he's trying to strike me or whatever, it's very easy for him to discover that I have a firearm. At this point, he may try to take my weapon. What are some of my options? Well, for knife retention, my immediate option is to trap him, keep him, and then deploy a knife, whether it be an Emerson that opens itself or bring out a straight edge or what have you, and then I can immediately deliver force to him to possibly get him off my gun. At that point, I can deploy my own weapon to end the fight, or I can end the fight with an edged weapon. Obviously, some people kind of shy away from the edged weapon aspect of things, but if he's trying to take my gun, what does that tell me? What would a reasonable person believe? I believe he's trying to take my firearm so he can use lethal force against me. Would I be justified in using lethal force to defend my weapon? Absolutely. All right, now Matt Powell from Prameks is going to walk us through some other retention options we have if you don't carry a knife, or if the knife isn't a viable option, or if it just your basic, when your SNS activates during the gun grab, if you don't think to deploy your knife.
Now there's a million different options that people talk about. One of the things that I'm going to talk about is that this close in, we're going to look at strikes and kicks. If he grabs onto the pistol there, the problem that I have is that the closer he is into here, the more leverage he's going to have to drive up on me or to drive me back and to push against me. So the first thing that I have to do is I have to get him off my body and get him off the gun and elongate this arm. I can do it through two means. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn, I'm going to blade into him. I'm not going to turn directly into him, I'm going to blade into him, and all strikes are going to be delivered up into the eyes. Preferably, it's going to hit up and then back through. So I'm going to strike and strike, or strike and strike. I've got to get, you can see that's already pulling him off there. I've got to get this arm elongated. So if I strike and bring off, that allows me to grab into it and pull it off. At that point, I can start to deploy. So we're elongating the arm. You're good? We're elongating the arm to get it off of there. Strike, strike, elongate the arm. The next thing that we can do is that my personal favorite down there is I'm going to kick into the shin or the knee there, or up into the groin. That's going to elongate the arm. Once I've done that, I can deliver a strike into the back of the head, pull him off, and deploy. So what we're doing here is that we are getting him to fold his body to elongate the arm. If he grabs there, I'm going to blade, kick. You'll see that that kick is here and straightens out the leg. It's a stomp into it. It elongates this. I can pull that off, grab a hold, and do it. Or I can elongate it, strike, pull him off, and then deploy. Those are two options that you can use for strikes and kicks to elongate the arm and get his leverage and power off of you.
Now, another thing that I want to talk about real quick is we're kind of isolating these movements as we go. So none of this occurs in a vacuum. As he's going through these things, it's very possible for me to try to fight back as it happens. But I want to show you, just kind of give you a little example of how impossible it is when he puts me at such a strong position of disadvantage. So if I come in and grab that gun and he goes through that, as you can see, I didn't really have a whole lot of options. Just for explanation's sake, I kind of tricked him out a little bit. He had no idea I was going to do that. We didn't walk through it ahead of time, so I basically just put us back in that same situation. And what you saw from Matt was his genuine reaction to what I was trying to do. Right now, my head's ringing a little bit. He gave me a pretty good elbow to the back of the head, just because it's, we roll 80% or higher.
Generally works to do that. You work with your training partners and go through scenarios slowly so that you can work through them. But when it's time to go, a lot of surprise attacks, surprise things, spontaneous reaction. You can look at the startle response. You can look at your own startle response, as Aaron just wrote about in his new article. So there's some things that you can get out of that training by kicking it up to 80% and higher, surprising people and working with them, or going slower and getting your mechanics down.
Yeah, and you're never too tough for safety equipment. If you guys are going to work through this at home, remember everything in context. You need to be safe as you practice these exercises. So I highly recommend headgear and a mouthpiece. Now, inside the waistband, outside the waistband, hip carry, even pushing back towards the small of the back, the techniques are pretty much similar. But those of you who appendix carry is a very popular carry position. That does change the dynamics of weapon retention a little bit. The discovery of the weapon, however it happens, he's going to control from the front. He's going to get his hands on that gun. I still have to trap it. But as you can see, I have less room to work with. So if I'm working from knife retention, my deployment is dependent on where I carry my knife. I strongly suggest support hand side. Now I've got limited options. I can't get to his hand because very realistically we're going to be wrestling over the gun. I've got a knife in my hand. I have to get him off me as soon as possible. Ideally, it's going to be just delivering really deep lacerating cuts to the arms. It doesn't matter where you get, preferably inside of a joint. We want to get inside of the hand, inside of the thumb, ruin his ability to grip. Across the back of the hand is very good. I just need to get him off the gun. At that point, I can either continue to use the edge weapon for lethal force defense, or I can go to my firearm. Okay,
so my primary thing with Appendix is that if an attack happens, it's going to force a fold in my body. So it's automatically at the waist. I can't blade away from this, and he has an immediate grab on this. So I've got to trap his hands. There's two things that I can do. I'm trying to get him off of me. Three things, actually. I can go up into the groin to try to back him off. I can strike repeatedly into the throat or down from the vagus nerve or drive up into the eye. I've got to get him off of me. Once that happens, I'm trying to elongate the arm so that I can move the arm off, control it, and deploy it. He's got on there, so I've got to trap his hands. What I can do is I can get in here and I can headbutt into the face, there. That's going to drive him off, headbutting into the face and then driving up to the groin. I'm trying to do a maximal amount of damage to get him off of me, because once he has that fold, he can push through on a dive and he's going to control the pistol on the ground, or he can lift me up and drive me. Either way, with the gun trapped here, I'm in a very big disadvantage because I can't blade off to him, so it's immediate violence as hard as you can. Thumbs into the eyes, headbutting, biting, whatever you need to do to elongate the arm, because that's going to get the hand out and start to weaken the grasp on the gun instead of being in here.
All right, so we know from real life that a fight can very easily go to the ground. Two people who didn't choreograph their activities, they get into a physical altercation, the presence of the weapon becomes known, and in some way, when trying to defend, or maybe just a panic struggle, I'm going to end up going to the ground. So if he takes me to the ground, he tries to sprawl on or something like that, and I end up down here, and I'm able to get him in my guard. When it comes to weapon retention, he's still trying to go for the gun. I have to trap it and protect it. Now that the knife comes out, I introduce the knife. I can deliver cuts and stabs. I would strongly suggest, just for the sake of physiology, that cuts are going to be more beneficial, because with a stab, it's a very real possibility the knife could actually become lodged in the body, especially if I go to the high thoracic cavity. It gets lodged in between some ribs or something like that. Disabling cuts, and then I can fight myself to a position where I can either bring the gun out or I continue to use the edged weapon for lethal force defense until I'm able to get to my feet. But from this position, it's very easy for me to deliver accurate gunfire, get him off of me, and then recover to a standing position, phone out, call 911. All right, so in a full mount position, I wasn't able to keep him from getting on top of me. He may be delivering strikes, but if he knows that the gun is there, he's going to be trying to take the gun. In this position, can he get to it? No, because he's covering it with his own thigh. So he's going to reposition himself in some way to allow him access to basically fight me for that gun. So whatever that position may be, he's going to find himself in a situation. Now, I've still got to trap that hand. I've still got to defend myself. I've got to deploy the knife. And just as the same with other defenses, I want to deliver as many cuts as quickly as I can to high critical areas. I want to cut tendons, ligaments. I want to get inside joints. I want to resist the urge to stab. I just want to deliver debilitating cuts until I can get him off of me and get my gun out or finish the fight with the edged weapon.
Rolling. So what we're going to look at is that if we're pulled into here and he goes for the gun there, I've got to do the same thing that I did a minute ago, which is work to elongate this arm to get him off of here so it's easier to pull off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my feet up, and I'm going to go ahead and kick and kick and kick as many times as I can, even if you hold on to it. Mm-hmm. You can see he's not going to be able to hold on if I'm kicking into the hips and into the ribs or the groin. That's going to open him up, and then once he's opened up, I can go ahead and start to move. So get the kicks, and the kicks are what's going to open him up most, get him off the gun, and give you that space.
Rolling.
Okay, so what we're going to do in this situation is that he's gone on and he's starting to kind of move to a side guard, and he's got one leg locked and he's got that there. So what I've got to do is I've got to start getting him out of there. So I'm going to trap this while still protecting into the face, up there, and I'm going to push him over. I'm doing that by using my knee up into the groin and then shifting, come back up. You can see that I'm shifting as hard as I can. Once he's there, that allows me to start to push off and to work to be able to get up. If he doesn't come off of me, let's go back to it. If he's there, if he doesn't come off, I need to start pushing my body up and working to continue delivering these kicks into the groin to get his focus off of here and protecting here. That, since my legs are there, my legs are my strongest body part, everything's going to be driving into the groin. It's not about tapping him out or being cool. It's about getting his attention off of here to allow me to access it.
Rolling.
All right, so the concepts we've talked about during this whole series of ground fighting pistols, some of them are a little alien to maybe newer shooters or shooters who are used to the more traditional range practice. You're used to shooting at paper. Well, this is about people, not paper. It's about as being realistic as possible. The introduction of an edged weapon to defend against a weapon grab is very realistic, but it may make some people uncomfortable because the level of violence I may deliver to someone in order to get them off my gun. Make no mistake, if someone's trying to take your gun, it's highly probable they intend to use it on you. Law enforcement officers unfortunately get killed every year with their own firearms. You need to be prepared to deliver as much violence as possible, either with an edged weapon or, if you don't carry an edged weapon, with your own body.
And one of the things to remember is that a lot of times we think in terms of violence as impacts and so forth, but violence is affecting the nerves and it's affecting the vital parts of the body. There is nothing wrong with, as one of my old teachers used to tell me, sticking your fingers, the human head is a bowling ball. Stick your fingers in it and throw it. There's nothing wrong with grabbing an ear. There's nothing wrong with, grabbing hold of skin, biting, doing what you have to do to get them off of the gun to allow you to access it. Thinking you're going to wrestle your way and MMA your way into protecting your gun, that can take time, and time might be something you don't have. Immediate violence may be something that you're uncomfortable with because of the level of what we're doing, talking about striking into the throat or the eyes or ripping an ear off, but you're trying to go home alive and you've brought the pistol to the fight, so it's your responsibility to make sure you keep yourself safe with something that normally wouldn't be there, that would allow you more time to grapple around with somebody.
And just factoring in common sense, if you end up in a self-defense situation, especially if there's a firearm involved, it's going to be close quarters. People don't get mugged from 15 yards. These fights happen very close. They happen at exchange rate. Your profit crime, give me your wallet, give me your keys, whatever have you. That's going to be an arm's distance. So when you train for self-defense, you need to have a very good focus on the more realistic, and then works your way towards what's less likely. Most likely to least likely. Violence is a very real big part of this. It needs to be something you're comfortable with, and you kind of got to think outside the box. 1,000 variables or more factor into a close contact fight over a gun or a close contact shooting. The techniques that we showed today were just examples, kind of get you thinking about the variables, understand how the body works, how you can get your bad guy off of you and get to your gun in an effective and safe manner. The closer someone is, the less time you have to react and the less time you have to be effective. Train accordingly.